Fire, fire, fire.
How to butcher your entire game studio in under 45 days. Highguard's disastrous and confusing story. How long did Concord last? Almost. Concord lasted 2 weeks. It was like the joke that it lasted the amount of time it takes for a fly to hatch or something, or for a fly to live. Yeah, like flies live for 2 weeks because they have a very short like lifespan, and then they just die. They breed, they eat, and then they reproduce, and then they die. Yeah, it lasted longer than Concord, so I mean, W Highguard. All right, chat, we're ready for some React slop.
$1 million.
What?
That's how much it costs to have a game trailer be featured to the millions of people watching.
Yo, it's time to make a game, a SmugAlana game slop, and then feature it for $1 million.
Watching the yearly Game Awards ceremony.
I need
However,
a loan.
During the final game reveal of 2025's award show, usually the moment everyone is waiting for, we'd see the showrunner preparing us to witness a new revolutionary multiplayer game made by an independent, self-published studio. And you know what? He wasn't exaggerating. In fact, the game was so revolutionary that it managed to get bombarded by negative reviews from the moment it launched. Proceeded to lose over 90% of its player base within less than a week after launch, fired 80% of its staff in barely 2 weeks after launch, and shut down the entire studio as well as the game itself in less than 45 days after launch.
I don't know if he mentions this, but all the devs of Highguard kept saying like, oh, we don't need a really fantastic launch to keep ourselves going. We just need you guys to be aware of it. I don't know how to tell you this, but like, a live action service game needs players, buddy. Like, you can't just like pay off your loan with like feelings and like you call up MasterCard, you're like, hello MasterCard, can I pay you off with love? Please? Maybe some attention? Can I give you that?
The story of Highguard is one of utter mismanagement,
we just need 1,000
blatant
players?
lies
Yeah,
about its independent status, and uncontrollable hubris that spanned over half a decade of development. I mean, it was such a disaster that it most likely burned through tens of millions of dollars of funding, with some even theorizing that the total amount could have been over 200 million. So how did these developers that worked on nothing but industry-defining blockbusters over the years fail so miserably?
Because they didn't have a vision and they were just doing it for the money. Like, I genuinely think Highguard was not a vision by an indie studio. They still had backup from Tencent, and Tencent had probably a decent amount to say. They're like, if you don't give us the money, we're gonna break your legs.
And why did one of the most influential figures in gaming decide to stake his entire reputation all for the sake of peddling Highguard harder than any other game in his career?
Well, he liked it.
As you might expect, the story is very messy and has a lot of details. So, without further ado, let's do this. All right, so to really understand the disaster of Highguard, we actually have to go all the way back to...
Oh, E3? What? Dude!
1995, when the Electronic Entertainment Expo, otherwise known as E3, would launch.
That is
Back
so
then,
cool.
video games were nowhere near close to how big they are today. And this expo was mostly used to showcase...
It's kind of interesting how most things that become popular, like for example, anime. I remember going to an anime convention when I was a kid, like in fucking school, probably at middle school or high school. I went with my friend and we both loved anime. And we love to draw, and it was like at some dingy ass Hilton hotel in the city, and there was like maybe 500 attendants. Like, if I knew back then that I should have taken more pictures and like remembered the moment, like I would have, but like I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Yeah, and like this is the same thing but for video games. Like, you just didn't know that it would blow the frick up like it does now.
To publishers and, well, business people certain aspects of the video game industry. Throughout the years that followed,
E3
though,
was
gaming
cool.
would start to become more and more profitable and mainstream. E3 would benefit from this directly, and it would become the biggest video game related event every single year in parallel to its European counterpart, which was Gamescom. It would consistently be held in the summer of every year, more specifically in the month of June. One of the biggest highlights of E3 was during the peak of the console wars, when you had PlayStation and Xbox rent out spaces a few feet away from each other.
That was so cool too, man. Like, say what you want about the console wars, I do think they are cringe at the end of the day, because it's just consumers fighting consumers to who has the best slop or the best machine. I don't think it's that deep, but like, it did breed better innovation and better product. It genuinely did, because they were fighting for the attention of the consumer.
They were presenting the next generation consoles that would define gaming for the next few years.
Yeah, it did make games better. It absolutely did.
However, as you might know by now, all good things come to an end, and E3 unfortunately was no exception. For many people, the end of E3 was due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but in other ways, one could say that it began prior. From the day this expo was created, the only people who had access to E3 were industry insiders or press. Regular people had no access, but E3 2019 changed that. This allowed 15,000 regular people, non-industry insiders, to buy tickets that were priced at over $100, so that they could, for the first time, join in on the fun. This showed that E3 was looking for more ways to make money. It simply wasn't sustainable to run this based purely on industry insiders. In 2020, the public passes were going to go from 15,000 to 25,000, showing a real need of more ways to make money. However, due to the pandemic, everything came to a halt. Unlike other conventions or events that brought their content online or remote, E3 decided to pretty much kill everything. 2020 was the only year since 1995 that had nothing to do with the Electronic Entertainment Expo. Now look, it's no secret, there are certain developers like Nintendo who've been holding their own presentations every single year since 2014. E3 shutting down in 2020 only made it more clear. Nintendo Direct is not only here to stay, it should be the primary source of Nintendo news. Xbox, who would usually reserve their biggest announcements for E3, would take a page out of Nintendo's playbook, inaugurating the Xbox Games Showcase, which has been, since that year, their main way to showcase their biggest announcements. PlayStation would do the exact same thing with the State of Play. In 2021, E3 was still not held physically, but this time they held it remotely with anyone able to join. They were hoping to return to an in-person event by 2022, but those plans were also completely scrapped, and there wasn't even a digital event. It was just like 2020. They were finally meant to bring back E3 physically in 2023, but due to the lack of interest by publishers who had already spent so much making their own shows, they just decided to flat out cancel it. This wasn't just the console makers making their own shows. You had
it's honestly just really unfortunate that happened. COVID just completely killed like in-person events. I remember I had a friend that was really into WWE or something, whatever, the Japanese one as well, and they were like, they would buy pay-per-views and then they would invite the entire Discord to come watch with them. Like, it was like 20-40 people in there, and then like some people would join, and it was like just this barren, like, not studio, but like this in-person like event, and there's like a couple of people, and you're just sitting there like, dude, this is like, even though I'm sitting at home, like, I want people to be there because it's like more enjoyable to see the energy that people are giving off. And it's like, it's not the same when it's like dudes wrestling or like girls wrestling. It's just like no one there. It sucks.
Developers are making their own shows too, like EA Play, the Ubisoft conference, the Square Enix conference. E3 was essentially made redundant, and the pandemic only accelerated that. I truly think that this was where the world was headed anyway. Problem is though, now you had multiple different conferences to look forward to for different publishers and games, and that in turn left a huge vacuum for any mid-sized or indie-sized studio. Where were they meant to talk about their games? Well, that's
only the games that get published or acquired by Microsoft, PlayStation, Nintendo. Those get shown. So anyone that doesn't have the money to fucking buy it, you get Crocs.
Geoff Keighley comes in. Look, Geoff, when it comes to the video game industry, has been a veteran for a very long time. If you followed any gaming news or events, you must have definitely seen his face at least once, whether it be E3, Gamescom, or any high-profile gaming-related event. His story goes back decades, even though the guy for some reason never ages. He was truly able to put his name on the map when he was...
Oh my god, old Gabe!
the only journalist who was present with
What?
Valve as they were launching Half-Life 2.
I know Geoff Keighley from this. I think Geoff Keighley Dorito. This is the one that I know him from. Yep. This is where I know him from. Yeah, that Dorito pulp. They put Doritos next to him. That's how I know him.
Behind the scenes in a studio, Valve, which is known to be quite secretive to the public. He was also involved in his fair share of controversy.
Oh, damn it.
Is like the whole Dorito Gate saga, when he presented the Halo partnership with Mountain Dew and Doritos, which led to this famous...
It honestly kind of christened as like, as Halo being the Dorito gamer juice shit, man.
Picture. Fundamentally though, to Geoff,
God.
his goal has always been to give gaming what it deserves, and that's to put it on par with other creative avenues, like movies. Both his parents were executives at IMAX. This meant that he constantly attended things like the Oscars. From an early age...
Oh, so that... Okay, so he's got a charismatic family and he probably learned a lot, yeah.
He wondered why video games didn't have an equivalent to the Oscars, even though they were a medium that deserved it.
You know what? I do think that like he genuinely cares about games. He's not one of those people. The fact that he's a picture of him next to Gabe in like the 2000s, I don't know. It's kind of endearing. I do think that's very endearing. He's not just some industry plant. Like, obviously, yes, there's a little bit of nepotism. But he actually said, like, fuck that. I don't want to do the Academy, the Oscars, the whatever. I'm going to do my own thing. I want to do this thing.
2014, he would do something ridiculous,
I
insane even, which is creating a new award show for video games with money out of his own pocket.
Okay.
He refused to fundraise it because he said it would be too awkward. He wanted to put his money where his mouth was.
Sure.
The reason why he was insane was because throughout the years, there were many other attempts to do this. These gaming awards, none of them would really stick. But over the years, he did exactly that. It actually stuck and has now become an integral part of video games. However, as
I think he's a very charming, charismatic
he also
person.
saw another opportunity, filling the void that it left. This is when he would launch the Summer Game Fest. It took place in the same month that E3 took place in. It wasn't rocket science. It aimed to fill the exact void left over by E3's cancellation. This meant that Geoff and his production team would not only head the prestigious Game Awards in December, but would also have another event called the Summer Game Fest in the summer. Both of these events would have game reveals, and both of them would be watched by hundreds of thousands of people expecting to see games that will revolutionize the space. When it came to the Game Awards in particular, over the years, it had gotten so successful with such a high, consistent viewership that by 2025, it was reported that if you want to showcase a 3-minute trailer during the awards, it would cost you over $1 million.
That's a lot of
almost doubling the prices from 2024. And of course, it goes without saying, the most valuable slot in the entire award show is the final game.
That's what I've been saying. I remember Asmund said that after this happened, and I was like, no way. And I looked it up, and it's true. The most coveted spot is at the end. I don't quite understand that. I would prefer to have the most coveted spot be the middle, because that's like when the viewership peaks. I don't understand that. Because, like, most people, they kind of clock out after, like, an hour. Even people's attention span doesn't last more than 45 minutes. Yeah, like, you sitting in class, that's why it's usually 45 minutes to an hour-long slot.
That's shown.
People forget the middle? Really? You think so? I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird. Maybe I'm weird.
Always save the best for last.
They come back for the end bit.
And so, this is why it was so shocking to the world that for the Game Awards 2025, with such high prices, the game deemed most valuable in the entire show, the one shown at the end, would be something they had never heard of before. Highguard. And this is how it would be presented.
Yikes.
Take a look for yourself.
You know, sometimes our last reveal at the Game Awards is a
this.
teaser for something years and years away. But not tonight. Our final world premiere comes from 61 members of the team that built Apex Legends and Titanfall.
I'm sorry. The expectation was so dreadful because it's like Titanfall. People have been just crying and slobbering for a Titanfall 3 for fucking years. That's what also is like, people are gonna get hung up on like the whole finale thing. I also think him saying, oh, Apex and freaking Titanfall, it's like, yeah, they got jebaited.
4 years ago, the
pissed.
principals founded a new independent studio
you can hear
with
in
the
the
hopes
background.
of pushing the shooter genre forward with a new original game. They've done it in complete secrecy, which is even more amazing because the game is very deep into development. The power of independent, self-published studios to push this medium forward is a growing and I think positive theme in our industry. And so tonight, you're not only going to get the announcement of the game, but also your first look at the gameplay. I've played it, and after you see this trailer, I think you're going to want to as well. Welcome to Highguard.
Yeah, 1,200 likes on the video, 17,000 dislikes. Now, I'm not going to show you the gameplay just yet. You need even more context to understand just how ridiculous everything he said truly was. Prior to this Game Awards show, Geoff would tweet coordinates, okay, on Twitter, just randomly, that would lead you to this weird statue.
Oh, the fucking Baldur's Gate 3? Oh my god, that was sick.
In the middle of the Mojave Desert.
No, not Baldur's Gate 3. I'm so sorry. That Divinity. I don't know why that slipped out.
It was an enigma. For weeks, people had no idea what it was. This was the main mystery of the Game Awards, and that game ended up being none other than Divinity,
Sick,
made
dude.
by Larian Studios, the same
Fake
people who
gamer.
made Baldur.
I'm gonna show you fucking Fake Gamer. Nah, fuck you. I'm gonna play Divinity when it comes out. I'm gonna do one stream. I'm not gonna play the whole fucking thing on stream, but I'll play one stream.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Fuck you.
To many, this was the biggest game of the Game Awards. This was meant to be the final game.
I'm not playing a fucking turn-based thing for a whole for like an entire month. It's gonna take forever. One stream.
To be shown, right? The biggest event of that day. Instead, what people got was a game they never heard of before that looked fairly generic, that didn't really seem to make it clear what it was about. Geoff had hyped this up like a revolutionary title, but it looked like any other game you could find on Steam right now.
Pretty crazy, that's right. Highguard launches in just 7 weeks on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. It is insanely fun to see, fun to play, as you saw in that trailer. And now it's time for our final award. Last year, Astrobot.
So there it was, the biggest game of this prestigious award show, coming out in 7 weeks and seemingly out of nowhere. So as you would expect, people put on their investigative fedoras to determine where this independent, self-publishing developer, as Geoff described it, came from. And that investigation would only lead to more confusion and suspicion. You see, the studio behind Highguard, Wildlight Entertainment, made their first announcement to the public that they exist back in the beginning of 2023. Here we can see the design and creative director of Wildlight making a tweet saying, "What have I been up to over the last year anyway? Working hard on a game with amazing people who I trust very much. Today we announced Wildlight Entertainment, our new studio. I've never been happier, prouder, and hyped for the game we're working on." As we can see in his Twitter bio, he had worked on Apex Legends, Titanfall 1 and 2, Modern Warfare 2.
Modern Warfare 2 OG, World at War, COD, Big Red One. Like, that's a lot of credentials, chat.
And Call of Duty, World at War, to name a few. So these are very well-regarded games in the industry. This is when the studio would also create its Twitter account saying, "Hello world. We're very excited today to announce our new game studio, Wildlight Entertainment. We've got big dreams of creating an epic shooter IP." And here we can see a Zoom call of 22 different staff members that were working at that studio as early as 2023.
Yeah, that's fair.
It wouldn't even take a day for game publications to start reporting on this. Former Apex Legends Titanfall developers create new studio, Wildlight Entertainment. The studio head would be Chad, someone who was at Respawn Entertainment for around 11 years. He was also the ex-game director for Apex Legends, a game that had, well, made a lot of money. So no wonder many publications were talking about it. You have a bunch of ex-Infinity Ward and ex-Respawn Entertainment developers that made their studios a lot of money, now forming their own. And so far, other than this very limited array of information we have from 2023, the only other thing we knew was from Geoff Keighley himself, calling it a self-published independent studio. Even though their own company LinkedIn page as early as 2023 would say Wildlight Entertainment is a new, fully funded entertainment studio, never really specifying where they got their money from. In fact, what I find interesting is that the website linked on their LinkedIn is wildlightentertainment.com. And when you go there, it says, we're under construction. Please check back for an update soon.
Devs usually do not have a lot of money, man.
It's not even wildlight.gg, which actually works. But this little piece of mismanagement aside, Wildlight was about to face a world of hurt that they could have never predicted after their reveal at the Game Awards. You see, back in 2024, Sony launched Concord, a multiplayer shooter that was meant to be live service that cost over $400 million, and that was such a disastrous flop. It shut down in under 2 weeks. I mean, it resulted in a studio that Sony had bought to shut down immediately afterwards. This made many people ask the question, who asked for this game to begin with? Ever since then, whenever someone comes out with a newly announced live service multiplayer game, they're placed under 1,000 times more scrutiny due to this.
I also think Concord was supposed to be a movie, and they decided to like double market it into a game and a movie, because if you look into the deeper research behind Concord itself, they had the idea of making it a full-blown like series, book series, and a movie. Or like a, yeah, they had like a whole cinematic, and they also wanted to make a show. Actually insane that they wanted to be like an answer to like Marvel, to Marvel's IP.
While I'm sure the Highguard developers, after working in secrecy for so long, were so excited about the Game Awards reveal, what they could have probably never expected is that people were making direct comparisons of their game to Concord, the worst thing you can ever hope to happen in this day and age. Based on this uninspired generic gameplay they showed during the Game Awards, even with Geoff's insane hype towards it, it seemed like it was going to be nothing more than a Concord 2.0, any developer's worst nightmare. But you know what?
Just the first impression, I'm just not impressed. Sorry. Even Marathon has a relatively more unique design that stands out. I can tell apart Marathon from like other extraction shooters.
Didn't help at all. Highguard's social media page would tweet almost immediately.
This looks like just paladins, but with guns to me. Like when I see the horse in the frame, I'm like, oh my god, did they just have paladins?
After the trailer would come out during the Game Awards.
The horses kind of look similar.
Night. We'd like to extend a big thank you to Geoff Keighley and the Game Awards. We have so much in store for you when the game launches on January 26th.
And then we go
can't wait
silent.
to welcome everyone into the world of Highguard. We'll see you next year, Wardens. Okay, this is a post you would expect them to make after the big reveal, sure. You know what else you would expect though? Them continuing to tweet up until release day.
No.
Except they didn't. They literally disappeared. To the point where many gaming publications, including Forbes, would start making articles about how they went MIA right after the Game Awards.
Yeah, because they're panicking. They're like, oh, fuck. Oh, shit.
No new videos on their YouTube page, no new tweets on their Twitter account, nothing. Radio silence, and the game was meant to come out 3 weeks from then. This article was written on January 6th. The game was going to come out in 20 days. 6 days later, Paul Tassi from Forbes would write another article on January 12th titled The Highguard Mystery. 2 weeks to launch in complete silence. Now look, to be fair, this could have been a genius marketing move. Everyone was talking about this game, saying how they probably closed down or declared bankruptcy right before launch. However, in my opinion, you'd be naive to think that there's no such thing as bad publicity all the time. No, there are exceptions. This isn't the Wolf of Wall Street. When your game is being called by so many people Concord 2, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy unless you're there to stop.
If you didn't have them being promoted at the Game Awards, it would have just flopped and died. It's just that everybody got to see it flop and die, and there's more people pointing at the corpse of this game. That like I think it would have released on Steam. It would have had, I don't know, maybe like 10,000 concurrent players, and it would have just fell off, and nobody would have played it, and people would have forgotten about it. It's honestly like kind of laughable how out of touch these game developers are from customers. Like, who asked for this? Even in 2018, I don't think it would have done that well. Because I think Apex was out in 2018, like, there was a lot of games that just existed that filled that niche. They just kind of did, I don't know, like you could play Fortnite because they have mining in this game too. Like you could play Fortnite and it's more fun.
But Highguard
2019 was Apex. Well, it's around about that time. Maybe it was a little bit off. But like if it came out earlier, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference either, to be honest.
wasn't there to stop it. In fact, a new theory is popping up now, the fact that they weren't even going to release anymore. And just as you thought that things couldn't get worse so shortly before the game was meant to launch, things got even weirder. The senior writer of Gaming and Tech at VentureBeat, Imran Khan, would come out with the news. Highguard did not pay a single penny to be featured in the most valuable spot in the Game Awards spotlight.
Holy shit. So all the schizos that were saying it got bought out were wrong? Wow.
That's right. The same Game Awards that charges $1 million for 3 minutes.
Like I said, Tencent, but they literally... Are you deaf? They literally just said that they didn't pay any money.
Gave its most valuable spot during the entire show for free. On January 17th... They lied?
Do you have proof? Do you have proof, or are you just schizo posting? Like, I want evidence before we, like, start schizo posting. Connections, not money. Okay, so we're just making up shit. I got it. Like, no. Like, I understand, like, oh, they were hiding the fact they were funded by Tencent, but, like, just watch the game? Oh, you mean the video? Yeah, sure. Okay. I don't know all the details, alright.
2026, 9 days before the game was meant to come out, Forbes would also confirm this, citing
sources.
2 separate sources that reached out, confirming, yes, they didn't pay a single penny. Geoff just really liked the game and offered it to them. So there we were.
So their company didn't pay for it. What Chad is arguing that is Tencent paid for it. I don't know yet. Let's just watch the video. You guys seem to be convinced that you know more than I do.
And this bombshell dropped. Is this Concord 2.0? Did they go bankrupt before the game even releases? And why the hell did Geoff give his most popular spot in the show to this very generic looking game? The gaming community was truly baffled at something that had never really occurred before. And just as the discourse was running rampant on every piece of social media you can imagine, something completely unexpected ended up happening. And that's Highguard finally breaking their silence barely 3 days before release. On January 22nd, 2026, Geoff Keighley would tweet just 4 days until the launch of Highguard on Monday on Steam and consoles. Bear in mind, up until this point, Highguard had said nothing since the Game Awards reveal. Geoff was single-handedly carrying this game's entire marketing, and many of the comments are pretty much saying this. Paul Tassi, the same guy who wrote those Forbes articles, would literally say, have you heard anything? Like, is the developer still here? Did they not go bankrupt? And it would only be on January 23rd, 2026 that Highguard would finally make some sort of social media announcement, 3 days before their release, saying, tune in on Monday, January 26th at 10 a.m. PT for the Highguard launch showcase. Here, we'll share an in-depth look at Highguard direct from the studio, featuring a full gameplay deep dive, year 1 plans, and much more. As you can imagine, many of the comments
Bro, finally remembered the password. Do you need a publisher? It was still time. Oh my god, they're tearing into them.
Roasting them, grilling them, with some acknowledging that this might have just been a very good marketing strategy. The Highguard account would then begin a countdown, posting every day up until release, saying 1 day remains. And you know what? Looking at some of these 420 replies, there was some excitement brewing. You know, people were very curious to see why was Geoff talking about this game so much. And God, talking about it was an understatement. The guy couldn't stop talking as if they held his family hostage. On January 23rd, he would just tweet this image randomly saying, Highguard, January 26th at 10 a.m. PST, signaling when it would release. Someone in the replies would say, thanks Geoff, to which Geoff would say, see you online. It's a special one.
Oh my god, man. You know what? I'll admire him for this. He didn't delete and then like fucking throw a hissy fit and call everyone a fucking slur. I will say that. Like, honestly, you know what?
Next day, he'd post a badge saying, I first went hands-on last summer and had so much fun with Highguard. Now it's your turn on Monday. Curious what everyone thinks. On that same day, he would post a GIF saying, in 48 hours, I'll be accepting your apologies, so when Highguard comes out. On January 26th, when the game would come out, he'd post a screen cap of a Polygon article. The title was, Highguard isn't dead on arrival. In fact, after 4 hours, I'm convinced it's one of the best new shooters in years. This didn't really mean much though, because Polygon thought Dragon Age the Veilguard was actually
yeah, good one, Polygon. But I trust you.
good, along with Concord. 1 minute
Yeah.
later, after that Polygon post, he would make another post with 4 different images of the game saying screenshots from Highguard, now live and free. Look, I think you get the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, he's
this guy
glazing
was
it. He's
tweeting and
glazing
talking
it.
about this game more than their official account. And when I say this guy, I mean one of, if not the most influential voice in video gaming. For some reason, he decided to stake his entire reputation on this game being a success, being fun, being good. So much so that he gave it his most valuable spot in his show. At this point, there was 3 possibilities. He had a financial stake in this game, his family was being held hostage by Highguard devs, or he just genuinely wanted to help. Regardless of those possibilities though, he just staked his entire reputation on this game, and that meant something. Some of the biggest streamers and content creators would check out this game as soon as it would release.
Yep.
Yes, of course, some would be sponsored.
Shroud.
That was Highguard's social media strategy, similarly to Apex Legends. We'll get more into that later. But let's not pretend that they wouldn't have played it anyway, because, God, the curiosity would kill you. Why is this guy who's so influential in the video game industry staking everything for it? It must
Because
be
he truly believed in it. I don't know. I would have to have solid, hard evidence of him getting like fucking paid, or like have actual like exchanges with like people and being like, yeah, I'll promote your game, guys. Don't worry.
good, right?
I need
well,
to
actually,
see that.
it was,
'Cause I just
dude,
don't
it was
believe it,
fucking
man.
mid. The trailer turned out to actually do it a lot of justice. It was generic as hell. Geoff's efforts would make it so that the game had 100,000 concurrent
Yeah, it's a
players on
lot. It's
release.
good.
That's a crazy number. However, even Geoff's endless marketing wouldn't prove good enough if your game just doesn't cut it, and it didn't. The player
Yeah,
count would
it's-
fall off very quickly.
Yep.
Almost a
It should be doing boom, not
day after
Number
the
go
game
up.
would come out, Geoff would tweet, "Thoughts on Highguard so far?" This tweet has over 7.5 million views, 5,900 replies. It was safe to say that he didn't really get the response he was looking for.
That face is so good. I'm trying to keep my mouth shut. Yeah.
I'm sure he was hoping for, "Geoff, you're right. Sorry, you proved me wrong."
You're
But instead,
amazing.
he got the absolute opposite. And of course, one of the biggest questions being asked at the time was,
That's true.
why did he shill this game so damn
Yeah,
hard?
no, it makes you question. Considering, like, there's claims that it was free, or, like, that the promotion was free, it does put a lot into question.
Hard knowing that it's nothing special. Someone would at Geoff
Stronger than
saying,
any
"Hey
V2
Geoff, I was
not
wondering if you
removing
financially backed
pliability."
Highguard
Yeah.
during development
No,
or
I
own some
admire
percentage of the
that.
company." Obviously, you don't have to answer. Just curious if you have any incentive with Wildlight Entertainment if they hit certain earning thresholds. To which he would reply with, "Lol, absolutely not." This meant that the 3 possibilities I listed earlier
Yep.
now were down to 2. Either Highguard developers held his family hostage, or he genuinely was just trying to help.
mean,
Well, as I
maybe.
mentioned, even
don't
his
know
help
that.
wouldn't be enough if the game wasn't up to par. On Steam, the game would open up with overwhelmingly negative reviews, with only 17% of them being
There was, like, actual graphical issues and performance issues to top it off. Not just people being like, "Oh, this fucking sucks, blah, 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 blah." Like, there was actual problems. People had to find workarounds to get it to work on their PC.
positive. The main complaints
Just
were poor
not good.
performance,
That pisses
uninspired
people
art
off.
direction, and just tedious gameplay. Look, if I had to explain to you the purpose of a game, like let's say Call of Duty or Apex Legends, it would take me 10 seconds. Like for example, in Apex Legends, you have multiple operators, each with different abilities. You land on a big map and your goal is to loot gear to survive,
Even I
hunting
can
down
follow
other players
Apex
and being the
Legends, and I don't
last
play
team
it.
to live. Done. Yeah, well, just to explain the gameplay loop of Highguard, GameSpot made a YouTube short. This was them trying to explain it as fast and simply as possible.
No.
You want to know how long the
Stop.
short is? 1 minute, 48 seconds. They needed almost 2
Bro.
minutes to explain.
Dude, even my parents understand what, like, CSGO is, or, like, just Counter-Strike in general. Shoot guy in head, plant bomb. That's it. So what else is there to do?
Explain to you the gameplay loop of Highguard. That already says a
that's
lot
insane.
to the
That is
complexity
way
and
too long.
tediousness of this game. Look, overall, it doesn't take a genius to understand from their trailer. You had multiple wardens, characters you could play with different abilities. You and your team would also vote on a base. There was multiple types of bases that you could start with. The whole point of this game was to fortify...
There's way too many mechanics. There's way too much going on for a fucking shooter, in my opinion. They took a bunch of ideas from... Excuse me. From different games, fucking Valorant, Fortnite. You have to do mining, paladins, you have horses. Like... I just don't think they, like, actually had the foresight to understand that, like, people don't want regurgitated shit. Like, why would I play this game when half the mechanics exist in other games that are just better? That sure cost them 90% of their budget. Guys, don't be that mean. I'm sure some guy did it for free.
Your base and attack the other base. You have to find a sword on a map which would allow you to destroy the shield of the enemy base, and then you'd be the attacker, they'd be the defender. And in order to win, you'd have to destroy multiple things in that base of theirs. Their generators, their power, etc., etc. That's
yeah,
it really.
It's kind of like Rust too. Someone said that in chat. I'm like, yeah, you have bases as well. It's like Overwatch because you're flipping, you're defending and attacking.
In an utter nutshell.
I mean, that's like
now look, in theory,
places,
this might sound fun, but there were some things that just didn't really make much sense that really added to the tediousness. This map was absolutely massive, and yet it was only 3v3. That to many people didn't make much sense.
That going through QA and then not like realizing how boring it is to run around and getting no action. Bro, like, people already don't like it when in Apex you just can't find anyone. Like, I've seen games in Apex where you can unfortunately just not encounter people, and that's annoying.
These aspects of tediousness as well as...
It's a game of mass ADHD era, this game can't work. Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, like, in general, even if you plopped this 20 years ago, people wouldn't have fucking played it, to be honest. Not having... Smuggler's Den! Speaking of ADHD, it's you guys. Yeah, I don't know. I think even 20 years ago, it's like, it's boring. Like, you want to just get in there and shoot people.
Uninspired gun gameplay, coupled with the fact that everything looked generic. A McDonald's type of art direction, as you might say. Like, as if you bought a bunch of different assets from a marketplace, gave the impression to many people that this was some sort of a Frankenstein game. Like,
it is.
They just took a bunch of different things they developed over a couple of years and just shipped it together just to get something out for people to play. And even though the game was free, the game was bleeding players like it had been struck in an artery. As of now, even game journalists found this game to be lacking, uninspiring, giving it a 63 out of 100 Metacritic score, but the real pain came from the players, 2.6 out of 10 from almost 300 user ratings. Steam currently has over 30,000 reviews, and it's sitting on mixed, with only 46% of them having something positive to say. The day after release, Geoff would acknowledge that
this was so based, honestly. Unironically so based. I don't know. I kind of love him more for that. Like, I don't know. It's just so... He's trolling. He's actually trolling.
Things weren't going that well for him.
He's being a
jokingly
troll.
say, opening X this morning, while linking an image of Flynn Rider from Tangled surrounded by many different swords. This tweet would again gain a lot of exposure. 5 million views, 47,000 likes, 2,000 replies. And again, as you might imagine, a lot of them were not positive. Many people in the industry would take notice of this, and some would choose to speak out against it. You'd have the vice president and co-founder of Epic Games say, "It's downright horrible," referring to all the hate this new game was getting.
All right, I don't want to hear from
Especially a free
Fortnite.
game from a new studio. Just so sad. This is a hobby for people they should approach with joy, not hatred. Of course, many of these 200 replies would not have positive things to say. One of the tweets on this topic that will get the most attention would be from Sven Vinke, the studio head of Larian, the creators behind Baldur's Gate 3, saying, "I don't like people shitting on things others have created. Putting something out into the world makes you vulnerable, and that alone deserves respect, even if you dislike the creation. It's easy to destroy things, it's a lot harder to build them. The best critics understand this. Even when
I think that he does have a point, and I think he's being a little bit of a soft, I don't know, like soft critic. And putting feelings into it, but like at the end of the day, you're putting out a product. It's not like you're putting out a piece of art. I mean, you are, but like you are okay, I'm getting way ahead of myself. You're putting out a piece of art on Twitter. It doesn't hinge on like people's livelihood. You're not like paying You don't like make money off of a Twitter post, but like if you're putting out a game and there's a dev studio behind it and people are relying on it to do well, I think that's a little bit different. I think there's way higher stakes. So like if you fucking put something out that sucks, like people need to let you know. Maybe don't send them death threats, but like I don't know, be realistic, man.
They're being critical, they do their best not to be hurtful.
There's a difference between putting out like a half decent game and then like expecting it to do really, really well just because it's copying everyone else too. Like, it should have done well because it's like got all these things that are really good about it that's from other games. It's like, no, man, no, that doesn't mean anything.
Again, as you might expect,
it's
the
not a
top
good piece of
replies,
art.
the most liked ones at least, were not in agreement with him. In just one day, Highguard would lose half its player count. Another day would pass by, they would lose yet another 50% of their player count. It seemed like with every—
I would even argue because he's the head of the Larian studio, and they made Divinity 1, and that game was okay. Like, it had a lot of potential, but it definitely wasn't something that broke, like, it didn't like break in the studio into like the stratosphere like Divinity 2 did. Because when Divinity 2 came out, when Divinity 2 came out, that was fucking mind-blowing for everyone. It was like, holy shit, there's a game out there that's like shut up, stop making fun of me. Divinity 2 was amazing, but like you can still play Divinity 1 and like appreciate it for what it is, but they definitely took the criticism to heart and made Divinity 2 amazing because they had so much potential. With Highguard, I just think it's very minimal. Divinity, shut up.
Passing day, thousands of players were leaving. But hey, it seemed like they weren't going to let that get in the way of their plans. Shortly after the game would come out, they would tweet, "Here's a look at the Highguard Year 1 game plan. Episode 2 arrives in 2 weeks. Each episode is 2 months long. Content shown is free for all players." And they would have plans up until December 2026. Every 2 months, you'd have a new warden, a new character to play. Every 4 months, you'd have a new map. Ranked mode was coming soon. You'd have new weapons, new raid tools, new limited time game modes. I mean, it seemed like...
I just don't understand. And then you have a game that's just not good in its inception, like the base game. My lord. And you put on all this effort of like planning?
They had things figured out. It seemed like they were here for the long run, regardless if players were leaving or not. It also seemed like they were very open for feedback and weren't afraid to try new things.
I think this was a good move. This turning it into a 5v5 instead of a 3v3 is good.
On January 30th, the number one...
I just think that they should have did that in the first place. Or make it 3v3v3 or 5v5v5. Like, the map is huge. If you've actually watched someone play the game, I watched Doki play it for like 10 minutes. I scrolled through her YouTube live stream or whatever. It's just too big. There's nothing going on.
Marketer of this game, Geoff Keighley, would tweet out, "Highguard has added a
5v5 with 9 playable characters. Well, I don't know. You'd have to let them play duplicates. I don't know. It's just
5 raid mode to the
game,
playable
Didn't think it
today."
through.
Now, did that help
Type
with
shit.
player retention? Yes, a few thousands would play, realize that the game just wasn't for them, like definitively, and then it would proceed to lose many more players, reaching below 10,000 on the 3rd of February, and only dwindling more since then. By February 12th, the game would be down to 3,100 players on Steam.
Yikes.
And with every passing day, they kept losing hundreds more. Even with their 1-year planning strategy and their willingness to accept feedback, it seemed like the Concord 2 prophecy was coming true no matter how hard they tried to fight it. This would be directly confirmed to us because in barely just 2 weeks after the launch of the game, the majority, not just a small chunk, the majority of the employees working at Wildlight Entertainment would get
They're not
laid
getting money.
off.
They can't pay them.
On February 12th, 2026, when the game was down to a mere 3,000 players on Steam and no doubt a few thousand on consoles as well, the
And
Twitter
it wasn't growing, even despite all the changes.
account Shinobi602 would tweet out, "Highguard developer Wildlight
Shinobi.
Entertainment has
What a
seemingly laid off
name.
most of its staff," quoting a LinkedIn post from an employee. in which they said, unfortunately, along with most of the team at Wildlight, I was laid off today. The LinkedIn post would go deeper, saying, this one really stings as there was a lot of unreleased content I was really looking forward to that I and others designed for Highguard. This person in particular was a senior level designer with 7 years of experience in the AAA game space. It has now been 3 weeks, and as far as I could tell from his profile, he's still looking for a job. Around the same time, another employee would make
McDonald's has a job opening.
Twitter article titled, Reflecting on Shipping My First Game, Highguard. This post would prove to be a disaster. The developer in question would get brigaded and bombarded with some very harsh words, turning a very bad situation even uglier. And it would mainly be due to a couple of paragraphs that I'll read out to you and, well, you can make up your own mind. He'd say that the game had unbiased internal pre-reveal feedback, and it was quite positive.
What? In who? I want to meet the people. No, stop it. There's no shot. There was unbiased positive feedback. You've got to be kidding.
When it was negative, it was constructive and often
unbiased, probably like their third cousin or some shit. Yeah, my mom said my hair looks cool.
Actionable, indicating that there was, as far as they were concerned, nothing wrong with the game. He'd then continue, but then the trailer came out, and it was all downhill from there. Content creators love to point out the bias in folks who give positive reviews after being flown out for an event, but ignore the fact that when their negative-leaning content gets 10 times the engagement of the positive, they've got just as—
That is such a fucking lie. That is a fucking lie. People were circle jerking over Baldur's Gate 3's success. Any game that's come out in the last 3, like a Claire Obscure, you couldn't fucking go step 2 feet without seeing a video about how amazing the game is. Not that it doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying that is such a fucking false narrative. That is such a lie.
As much incentive to lean into a disingenuous direction, whether consciously
that is
or
so
not.
cringe.
The hate started
yeah, Black Myth I farmed that too, despite not playing it.
Dogpiling on the trailer, I personally came under fire due to my naivete on Twitter, which almost all of my now former coworkers had learned to avoid during their previous game launches, he explained. After setting my Twitter account to private to protect my sanity, many content creators made videos and posts about me and my cowardice, amassing millions of views and inadvertently sending hundreds of angry gamers—
Well, yeah, when you say that it had positive feedback and then you say, oh, well, your negative feedback is invalid because our playtesting did well, like, yeah, you're gonna get told that you're a fucking retard. Obviously not, don't fucking send him horrible shit and tell him to, you know, gain him himself. I think that's fucking way too harsh, but yeah, if you want to let him know, yeah, sorry. Shouldn't have a public account. That's why Bobby Kotick doesn't have a public anything, because people are gonna fucking shit all over him for shitting up the Blizzard.
Into my replies.
Bobby's
they laughed
yacht.
at me for being proud of the game, told me to get out the McDonald's applications, and mocked me for listing having autism in my bio, which they seemed to think was evidence the game would be trash. All of this was very emotionally taxing. He would then acknowledge that there's much constructive criticism about the trailer, marketing, and launch, but also isn't sure if things would have been better had the game not been announced at the Game Awards. He would then say,
yeah,
we were turned into a joke from minute 1, largely due to the false—
Because it sucks. I hate all this verbal diarrhea. Like, it's just because it sucks. Like, that's it.
Assumptions about $1 million ad placement, which even prominent journalists soon began to state as fact. Within minutes, it was decided. This game was dead on arrival, and creators had free rage bait content for a month. Every one of our videos on social media got downvoted to hell. Comment sections were flooded with copy-paste meme phrases such as Concord 2 and Titanfall 3 died for this. At launch, we received over 14,000 review bombs from users with less than an hour of playtime.
I think that's bad. I do. I think that's unfair. However, what about post-launch? Did you prove everyone wrong? People gave it a shot. 100,000 people played your game. Like, did you really? I don't know.
Many didn't even finish the required tutorial. He'd finish this by saying, if this pattern
How long is the
continues,
tutorial?
all that will be left are
Does anybody know how long the tutorial is?
corporations, at least in the multiplayer space. Innovation is on life support. Even if Highguard had a rocky launch, our independent, self-published, dev-led studio full of passionate people just trying to make a fun game with zero AI and zero corporate oversight deserved better than this. We deserve—
It's 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes for a tutorial how to shoot people in the head? Like, what?
the bare minimum of not having our downfall be gleefully manifested. Barely a couple of days after this article would come out on Twitter, this developer would end up deleting his account.
Oof.
For many of his loudest haters, this article he wrote was nothing more than him playing the victim. Blaming gamers, blaming content creators, blaming pretty much anyone except maybe himself and the game developers that made this game that seemingly no one asked for. On the other hand,
also bringing up, like, I'm sorry, putting autism in your bio and then using it as a defense as to why people don't like your game and attacking you. Half the people attacking you are probably autistic too. Let's be realistic. Come on.
Though one can understand his frustration. He had worked for almost 3 years on a game, finally revealed it, and within the span of a month, his whole life fell apart. I don't know what he was hoping to do with this article, but you know, in the end, as we can see, his account was gone. But that was the least of his worries and the least of many other people's worries when it came to Highguard. That's because barely a day after the mass layoffs would happen, Highguard's website, when you'd go to it, would say, "Site unavailable. This site is currently unavailable. Please contact some email for assistance." Under that, you would see a link to their Discord server and their Twitter profile. Now, the Twitter link worked. The Discord link, on the other hand, did not. In fact, when you would click on it, it would redirect you to a completely different and unrelated Discord server by the name of Highguard Gaming.
How did that even happen? Did they not acquire Highguard as a Discord? Like a link? What happened? Like some random guild. This
had nothing to do with the game. It was just called Highguard. They didn't even bother posting the right server in that link. Additionally, as this was all happening, Highguard couldn't even be found as a YouTube category anymore. Usually when you upload a video of a game, you can very easily label it. Let's say League of Legends or Call of Duty. Highguard had a category, but it was removed. And during all this, someone would ask in the correct Highguard Discord server, what's up with the website being updated? And someone from the Highguard team would say, not sure on the time frame, but basically it needs to be transferred and simplified. Low priority at the moment, reputational damage already done. Now we just need to focus on delivering updates and content to improve. Now look, I already know what you're thinking. Mugen, this is a catastrophe. This is a disaster. What the hell is happening? Oh yeah, it is. You're completely right about that. But here's the
To be fair, I will give them benefit of the doubt that they don't know what's going on because they're just a Discord mod. Like, I know people are going to be like, oh, well, they're just hiding it. I will give them benefit of the doubt that they just don't fucking know. They're just a Discord mod at the end of the day. Maybe they are doing something behind the scenes, but this person doesn't know.
It's about
or they told them to say that, and they don't know any better.
To get a million times worse. Remember how Geoff had introduced Highguard's developer? Here are his exact words. This is how he described them.
Apex Legends.
Independent self-published studios to push the
independent self-published studios. Earlier than this, during this clip, he would also call them independent, indie. Hell, even the employee who had written that article before deleting his account would refer to them the same exact way. Independent self-published studio. We were under the impression this studio was independent, self-funded. This is what everyone was saying. However, on February 17th, 2026, the same day their website would go down, the games journalist Stefan Totillo would drop a bombshell saying, sources, Tencent secretly funded struggling shooter Highguard. Wildlight Entertainment has said for years it was fully funded, but not shared detail. Stephen's article would go into specifics, saying that it wasn't Tencent, the Chinese entity that directly funded them. It was done through a subsidiary, Timmy, saying sources familiar with the Tencent Wildlight connection said that Tencent studio group Timmy was the group backing Wildlight. They did not specify to GameFile the reason for the secrecy about the agreement, nor did they share the scale. It's unclear if or when the funding ended and how that relates to last week's layoffs. Wildlight has been technically independent and not part of Timmy. Timmy/Tencent are massive players in gaming, and yes, they are. I've mentioned them on this channel already. One can't forget that Tencent Games owns Honor of Kings.
They own pretty much all the massive fucking... Well, not own, but like usually they're either owned by or they have investments. Because look, Candy Crush is owned by Activision Blizzard. However, Tencent has very likely invested into Blizzard, so therefore, yeah.
The highest grossing mobile game of all time
they don't own it, but they have invested interest.
Sitting at $18.6 billion, making even more money than Candy Crush Saga. Let's also not forget that they own 40% of Epic Games as well as 100% of Riot Games, the creators of League of Legends. This of course dealt an even bigger blow to Highguard's already dwindling reputation that was down in the gutter. People felt like they were lying about their whole independent self-published status. And while we don't have a specific number as to how much Tencent could have funded the studio with, some people have been floating around the idea that it was over $200 million. And saying that the studio was technically founded in 2021, announced in 2023, and had its first game launch in 2026, those many years of development could very easily span tens of millions of dollars. But look, Highguard was already in the shitter, okay? They had laid off most of their staff. I mean, come on, this was going to be dead. This was truly going to be Concord 2. The person suffering from this Tencent connection was Geoff Keighley. Now, there was a conspiracy. Maybe Geoff wasn't doing this because his family was held hostage or out of the goodness of his heart. There was again a third possibility in the mix. He was doing this for real financial incentive because Tencent and Geoff Keighley maintain a long-standing strategic partnership focused on expanding the global reach of the Game Awards and other gaming events.
I can see that.
Since 2016.
Again, I did say to chat, like, I don't know. I want proof. It's all speculation. We don't know. People were arguing with me and saying, like, oh, it's connections. And I'm like, I understand that. But, like, everybody has connections to, like, Tencent in some regard if you work with the video game industry. Like, I'm sorry. It doesn't mean that he instantly got paid. Like, you just don't know that. I need evidence.
This collaboration
I'm all
has
for
facilitated the
conspiracy
show's
theories,
distribution in
but
China.
I want proof.
And one can see that the senior vice president of
or
Tencent,
something.
Xiao Ma, is sitting on the advisory board of the Game Awards. So by February 19th,
I can see
Geoff's
that.
posts on Twitter, in which he would talk about things unrelated to Highguard, would have questions about this. Are you secretly funded by Tencent? Were you pressured by Tencent to make these posts about Highguard? What's going on exactly? This studio is about to completely close its doors. The game was very mid. You must have been lying that you had fun, right? But still, layoffs aside, Tencent aside, flop and impending doom aside, Highguard would continue to patch and update the game, releasing multiple updates, one on February 19th, as well as one on February 26th, releasing new game modes, new weapon balance patches. And
They're
while
trying.
that was admirable,
They're trying.
by February 26th, the game was down to 611 players on Steam. In exactly 1 month since release, the game had gone from 100,000 players to 611 players. The majority had left and no one was coming back. At this point, the writing was on the wall. It was clear as day. This studio, this game, they weren't.
I also hate corpos for not taking into account that like word of mouth is also insanely powerful. When I played Divinity, for example, it wasn't because I saw some ad or anything like that. I literally heard it from a friend that was playing WoW, and they were like, you know, this fucking amazing game. My friend was talking about, my real life friend that doesn't really play video games a lot, and they mostly play like story games. They said that this game's really, really good. And I'm like, okay, maybe we'll just give it a shot. And it just exploded.
And the last. And so on March 3rd, 2026, the official
the game
Highguard
sucks.
account
I don't know.
would
People
post an
warn
article
each other too.
saying, Highguard's final update arriving soon. Thank you for playing with us. In which they would say, more specifically, today we're sharing difficult news. We have made the decision to permanently shut down Highguard on March 12th. Since launch, more than 2 million players stepped into Highguard's world. You shared feedback, created content, and many believed in what we were building. For that, we are deeply grateful. They would then go on to say, the team is excited to release one final game update to enjoy in the remaining life of the game. We'll be adding a new warden, a new weapon, account level progression, and skill trees.
Are they gonna refund the people that spend money on the game?
Patch notes are coming, and we're targeting tonight or tomorrow morning for patch release. From all of us at Wildlight, thank you for playing, for supporting us, and for being part of Highguard's story. This article would have over 8 million views, 4,100 replies. And while some were disappointed or shocked that this had happened, many were expecting it, maybe even gloating about it. From the get-go, this game was nothing more than a self-fulfilling prophecy of being Concord 2, and they had just shut down in under 2 months. But how did this even happen? How do you get the backing of Geoff Keighley? How do you get the most prestigious slot in the Game Awards show with over 1 million viewers? How do you get financial backing from one of, if not the biggest?
Yeah, and like, Tencent has a lot of successful games. Like, why are you trying to say, like, oh, wait, it's only because we're a small indie studio and, like, everybody shit all over it? It's like, yeah, but you had a lot of money, didn't you? A lot of money doesn't mean it's going to be a good product either. There's plenty of indie games that have under $1 million of funding, which, granted, is still an insane amount of money. But in the grand scheme of things, like, a lot of indie games exist, and they've spent thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Gaming company in the world.
Into, like,
how do you
making
get
the game
very
possible?
talented developers that worked on nothing but blockbuster games and still managed to fail so miserably? Well, now we know. And it's even messier than we could have ever imagined.
Ooh,
Respawn
okay.
Entertainment is a studio owned by
Respawn.
EA.
More like
their first breakout hit
Refart.
was Titanfall, releasing in 2014 and garnering many positive reviews. I personally loved playing it when it came out. It was really cool and innovative. Some years would pass by, and they would then release Titanfall 2. This game was not only well received for its multiplayer aspect, but it had something the first game didn't, a single-player campaign. And that was absolutely loved by so many. And even though people were expecting them to maybe work on Titanfall 3, they ended up doing something very unexpected. Shadow dropping a game in 2019 with zero marketing, zero announcement, just saying, hey, it's out, called Apex Legends, a battle royale game that garnered a lot of success. The late co-founder of Respawn Entertainment would tweet out, I'm so overwhelmed right now. Play Apex broke a million unique
and this was before COVID too.
Players.
So that was a big deal. Really big deal.
And after the first day would pass by, it would have reached 2.5 million players. This is a game that had zero marketing. To many, this is how a game should launch from now on. All games should launch like this. Like, yo, we just dropped this game, play it. No announcements months prior or years prior. This was genius, and it was free. So it's no surprise that in just a few years, by 2024, this game would have made over $3.4 billion.
It's a lot of dollars.
And again, I really have to emphasize this. This game had no
$1
marketing. Grand Theft Auto 5 had spent $100 million on marketing alone. So of course, everyone in the gaming industry wanted to know, how did you guys do this? How did this surprise launch even come to be? When did you even start working on this game? And this is what one of the developers would say. The way we work is by finding the fun. We don't have a game director who sits down and writes out a 500-page Bible. We're like a really poorly trained dog on a walk. We just kind of sniff around. Let's follow our nose wherever we go. Whatever's fun, we'll go a bit deeper, rub our nose in it, roll around in that a little bit. So this had happened in mid-2017 after the post-launch support for Titanfall 2 would end. They didn't really know what to do, and they just started messing with prototypes. Some of the developers at the time were interested in making a battle royale game. They would put together some prototypes, and very quickly it became very fun. And the rest is history. And so by the time Apex Legends had made billions of dollars, some people at Respawn felt, you know what? We could do this again.
Apex? No, I just watched people and friends play it. I thought that the movement looked cool.
This time on our own terms, and would leave to create Wildlight Entertainment. In fact, here was their exact reasoning from a Bloomberg article. Back in January 2026, Dusty Welch, the co-founder and CEO of Wildlight Entertainment, would tell Bloomberg, yeah, we left Respawn because things were getting a bit too locked up. There was no more freedom. We couldn't just do whatever we...
This happens so much. I wish video games, like live service games, stopped fucking taking money from these fucking massive publishers. I really wish they'd stop. I don't know, a lot of games that I enjoy now, like, they peaked at a certain point and then they got bought out and it instantly went to shit. Like Blizzard, Riot, like there's so many games. I know, like, people talk about Destiny. I never played it, but like people talked about how it just, yeah, like COD as well. It, I don't know, man, just like
wanted like we used to. However, in this article from the end of February 2026, we'd see another reason. One could say the main reason. It would say, in 2019, they had released Apex Legends, a battle royale shooter in which dozens of players fight across a giant map. The game proved to be a massive success, generating more than $3 billion in revenue. Yet as sales piled up, some of the creatives who'd worked on it felt unhappy that they weren't benefiting enough from the resulting windfall. According to people familiar with what happened, who asked not to be identified discussing non-public information, the Wildlight founders decided to do things differently. One of their plans was to set up a profit-sharing program.
Is that them saying that all of the well, not all the profits, but a lot of the trickle-down didn't go down to the devs? I think that's a totally valid thing. That sucks. I hate that. Yo, dude, it's like the raid. I appreciate it. I think that's what they're implying. Yeah, like all the CEOs benefited, or like the investors, and they were like, nah, fuck that. That's lame.
Program,
They
so
did
that
their
if the
own
studio
thing.
did deliver another big success, everyone would benefit. An enticing setup that ultimately helped Welch and his co-founders attract many of their former Respawn colleagues to the new company. Armed with a significant amount of funding from Tencent Holdings Ltd, Wildlight began hiring employees and making plans for its first game.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
founders knew they wanted
that's
to make
good.
another multiplayer shooter, but they hoped to avoid the crowded battle royale market. So instead, they looked to Rust, a survival game in which players can raid enemy bases and
But then they ended up pivoting and making it a shooter anyway. Oh my god. Too many fucking cooks in the kitchen.
their own. They began constructing levels and designing mechanics for what was envisioned as a survival.
Someone said Rust, and I totally see it now.
2 years into development, the team realized that the design wasn't working, in part because the amount of freedom conflicted with their goals for highly competitive play, according to people familiar with the events. Also, the scope was too big. Still, some parts were salvageable. The base rating aspect of the survival game in particular seemed worth keeping. In January 2024, the team pivoted to what would become Highguard, a raid shooter that streamlined many of the survival aspects into a faster, more competitive game. So this is kind of starting to make more sense, right? The idea of why the game felt like you were playing this Frankenstein creation of
it
multiple
makes
aspects
sense,
mashed
yeah.
up together. Look, the dog sniffing
I can also see what happened with Diablo and Hearthstone. I can liken this. When a game dies, like for example with Overwatch, when you have a big conglomerate like Blizzard that makes all sorts of games, because they made RPGs, they made an MMO, they made a MOBA, they made a card game, they made an RTS too. They try to shuffle people around, and I just don't think that's really an amazing idea unless there's some overlap. I can see how maybe like a base builder survivor can, like a person who makes shooters can work on it, but it's like it's not a 1-to-1. Like I feel like it's just not a great idea to like do this and try to mesh together a bunch of shit. Like I don't know, maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but like I just feel like when you try to make like the only thing that's missing is that it should have been like a fucking extraction shooter. That would have just been so bad to top it off. Shuffling people around, so we got Anthem, Mass Effect, Andromeda. Yeah, I know, and that's what I'm saying. Like I'm bringing up Blizzard because it's what I'm most familiar with, and it really, really shows to me as like a Blizzard fangirl. It really shows when I see someone that's like, oh yeah, I used to work for Hearthstone and now I work on the WoW team, and I'm like, why the fuck are you working on the WoW team? It's literally like apples to oranges. Like you just got shuffled around. Like I don't blame them. They have to make a living and stuff, but like at the end of the day, like holy fuck. It's not how it works.
That Respawn Entertainment used is very important. Let's not forget that Call of Duty Zombies was made by just a few people messing around in the office.
Yeah, which is
but
based.
you also need a proper scope.
It's
You
awesome.
can't just do whatever you want, however you want, with unlimited money. They had also failed to understand what made Rust special. Base rating was intense because of what was at stake. You couldn't rush it down to under an hour. The same feelings wouldn't be there. It would just be tedious. They had essentially made a game with no demographic. If you wanted base building, you'd play Rust. If you wanted Battle Royale, you'd play Apex Legends.
Or
One really
fucking
interesting thing the
Fortnite, for
Bloomberg
God's
article
sake.
also mentioned was when asked what they thought went wrong, several former Wildlight developers used the word
And also like the investment. Like people have so many hours on Rust, it's hard to get them off of Rust unless it's something exceptional and better. People aren't going to abandon it. Why do you think Tarkov still has a viewer base? Not a viewer base, like still has a player base? Because there's not that many answers to it. Like, yeah, I know people bitch about it and say, oh, Tarkov sucks, but I love it. It's like, yeah, you love it and you hate it, but there's no answer to it. Like, there's very few people that will migrate from a game that they've invested so much time into.
hubris, a belief by the company's leadership that they could emulate what had worked in the past with Apex Legends. No matter how much the gaming landscape had changed since then, after all, they'd made one of the last decade's biggest hits. This hubris stemmed from the fact that they were so confident this game was good, they were going to shadow drop it again, just like Apex Legends, knowing that the game could hold up.
That is very
for
arrogant,
itself.
to be honest.
However, after Geoff Keighley had played during their playtest, he approached the development team. He approached the co-founder, who was his friend, and told them, hey, I love the game. I want to highlight it during the Game Awards, since you guys are an independent studio. the co-founder, would say he came into the studio and played the game.
I mean, honestly, if they're friends and he didn't get paid, I still believe that it's not as bad as if he secretly got paid by Tencent. I know people are going to give me shit. They're like, no, it's just as bad as if he was paid. It's a friend of nepotism, I think, is a little bit less egregious than someone who's like, oh yeah, just give me I'm going to give you money. Give us the last spot, please.
Twice, and he said, guys, can I propose to you? I want to do something that's unique. I want to put it in this spot and kind of do something different and bring this to the world. Welch would say, and that wasn't our plan, but like, are we going to turn down the exposure? Who would turn that down? And then you'd have Chad Grenier chime in too, the ex.
I just don't know. I feel like people are, I'd like to think that everybody has hindsight is 2020, but like I don't know, maybe it's just the arrogance. They were already so arrogant that they were going to shadow drop this garbage. Yeah, and then the playtesters are like, oh, it's mostly positive. Like, you just don't get it.
Creative director of Apex Legends and the head of the studio of Wildlight, saying, so we rushed a trailer together. I wish the reception had been better, but in hindsight, we made a trailer to entertain really quickly and didn't show the gameplay loop and was different and unique. They would then take the exact same approach as Apex Legends. No real marketing until release, and then a massive social media campaign with influencers, streamers, content creators, you name it. Problem is though, during the silence and during the time in which people were calling this game Concord 2.0, the morale of the team was hit pretty badly. They couldn't say anything, and they were watching people pretty much tear into something they've worked on for 3 years. Barely a month after the game had come out, the layoffs would begin. It would be held online on a Zoom call since the studio worked remotely, and they'd pretty much announce, yeah, the funding was entirely pulled from the studio. The 100-person team had over 80% of it laid off that same day.
Welcome
By the time
home.
Eurogamer's report on February 27th, 2026 would come out, there were less than 20 people still working at the studio, doing their best to release updates before the eventual shutdown on March 12th. On March 3rd, Highguard would announce to the world that it was shutting down on March 12th, and shortly after that, you would start seeing way more posts posted on LinkedIn from previous workers at Wildlight talking about the fact that this game was shutting down and how, well, they were looking for a job, saying things like, we swung for the fences in a saturated market and made something genuinely new that we loved to play.
This is gonna sound harsh, but I do think we need to go back to like the Renaissance era, or like the 2000s, where it's like, if you want to make a fucking game, you gotta love it. Like, it's not for profit. We need to cut out all these fucking investors that don't play games. I've talked about this like a million times, and I'm beating a dead horse, but like, this honestly just proves that like, if you truly don't, like, I don't know, man, it's like, you have to love the game. You have to love the art. If it fails, then it fails. Like, a good example of this is actually what's that fucking game that Palworld had games before that were not similar, but like, it had the same kind of feel, and it was made in Unreal Engine, and they made the game, and it flopped. It didn't do that well. Like, yeah, there was a couple thousand people that played it at launch, but like, Palworld wasn't on another level, and it showed because they had the practice and the love of the game. Even though it flopped and they didn't have a lot of money, they still went with Palworld, and they pushed it forward. Silksong was delayed so long because the devs loved it too much. Yeah, you want to put your best foot forward too. Like, all these investors also push, and they want their fucking portfolio to look good too. Yeah, it sucks.
Even the studio head,
stop delaying the game. We need our money now.
Starting it off
type
with,
shit.
Highguard didn't need to become the next Apex-sized hit to succeed. We weren't chasing that scale. What we needed was a smaller but stable and sustainable player base, and ultimately we weren't able to find it. That's interesting, because I would argue a smaller but stable and sustainable player base would be around maybe 2,000 players, a few thousands, let's say. But let's remember that by the time they had reached 2,000 or so players on Steam, they conducted the mass layoffs. That's what
I would even argue that is not enough, because for a matchmaking system, they also, I don't know if Mujin, maybe he left it out intentionally or not, it doesn't really matter, but my point is like, you need to have a lot of players to make matchmaking, and they really push this competitive ranked bullshit too. Like, what do you mean we only need a couple thousand players? You need a lot of people to play with so that you get like proper matchmaking. It's not a for fun game according to them. They wanted something competitive. like an esport.
Counting the players on consoles. So this really begs the question, what was the studio even hoping to achieve? Did they really think they'd have over 10,000 players within a week if it wasn't for the Game Awards? This whole thing reeks of mismanagement and hubris. It's incredible. He then
very
go on to say how
arrogant, to be
proud he is of
honest.
the journey of his team and that he had learned a lot throughout all of it. At the same time,
Yeah, I
though,
bet
you'd
you
also
did.
find him on Twitter saying something that was very interesting. You see, someone would quote tweet the closure announcement of Highguard, saying, "People don't praise failure, but it's the foundation of every success, nothing but love for wildlight." To which someone would reply with, "It's just baffling to me they released the game in such a skeleton state and decided now's the time to add account levels and introduce some sort of skill tree system. It's crazy to see
It's to get people to play. It's really not that difficult. It's not baffling. It's just like it's like the throes of death. Please.
parallels
Please
between this
play
game
our
failing and
game!
seeing Marathon come back after
Please!
so many tests. This is when the studio head, Chad Grenier, would say, when you're out of time and money, you have to release a game with the runway you have available and hope players will stick with you post-launch. Now, that definitely didn't give off the same tone that his LinkedIn post did. Hell, I'm even baffled why you would want to even admit this, you know? You had close to 4 years of development, and...
That's not, no, because if Silksong just released as, I don't know, maybe like it was a year into development, people would be disappointed, but they held off as long as possible. Excuse me. Excuse me. I forgot what I was saying. If Silksong didn't release the way it did, maybe it wouldn't have been successful. Like, people really wanted a sequel for Silksong. They probably would have been disappointed if it was only released like 1 to 2 years into development. Like, I really do think that there's a reason why you need to just trust the developer, the person that loves the game more than you in your entire life. Like, you playing the game doesn't compare to even them making the game. Them making the game, that's their baby. That's their piece of art. Like, they birthed this thing, and without it, you would not be able to play it. Like, no matter how many hours you put into it. You don't know what it's like. They know better than you do, very likely. Like, it's just insane to me that these people are like, oh yeah, well, we should have pushed it out and like hoped that it would have been better. It's like, no, you release it when it's ready, brother.
This
Thank
was
you,
the
bless
best
you, by the
could
way,
do.
thank you.
The more we learn about
I
this
was just
game,
trying to keep my
the
train
more
of
we
thought.
understand this was mismanagement. They were fully funded and got way too confident about that.
Yeah,
But development
yeah.
and management issues aside, some people would spark up
arrogant.
discussions about the art direction of this game and the missed
Bro, this would have been cool. What? That's cool.
potential. Many of the employees who worked
My
on this game
jaw's
artistically
dropped.
would
That's
start
cool.
posting much of the work on websites like ArtStation, showcasing it in their portfolio. One thing that people would find is this very
Yeah, it's like Monster Hunter, kind of like Apex Legends kind of vibe, dude.
interesting character concept, being absolutely baffled as to why this wasn't included in the game's release, instead including some way more boring designs.
Because
At the same time,
it's fucking safe. It's safe, that's why.
the artist
I hate
Kasaragul would
this.
make a very interesting long post about the art direction of this game and why it was baffling, how none of it really made sense. It didn't mesh well together. Some people also argued that because much of the game's art was outsourced to different studios and people outside of the
Yeah,
studio itself,
That's a huge fucking problem. Huge problem.
the outsourcing team as well as the art director failed to keep cohesion, which resulted in not
I hate this particularly in fucking music.
just the gameplay itself feeling like some sort of Frankenstein creation, but also its entire art direction. The entire thing was mismanaged to hell from day one. It was a tragedy. And with
Yep.
that, I actually want to mention a quote from Gabe Newell. This is drawn from the article by Geoff Keighley.
Outsourcing is a huge problem. I think there's a time and a place for outsourcing because one game, maybe this is an exception. I could be talking out of my butt. And I do think outsourcing is a fucking problem with a lot of game studios. But the one thing that I will say, a really good game that I think like did really well from being outsourced is actually the Diablo 2 remaster. I think they did a great job, and I think that if it wasn't fucking owned by Blizzard, I actually think that it would be a stellar game. Like, they did a really good job on that. Yeah, there's not a lot of people that complain about the remaster. And people were really extremely skeptical of the remaster, relaunch, whatever it is, because of Warcraft 3, because that got relaunched and that was awful. That was god awful. Like, there was no redeeming that shit. Yeah, and Oblivion remake was outsourced. Again, I know there's exceptions to the rule. Maybe outsourcing overall flatly just sucks, but yeah, I do think that, like, there are some W's out there and there's nothing really wrong with it. It depends, yeah. If you already have a direction and you have, like, a really solid outsourcing manager or someone who's, like, really passionate about it and they really know what they're doing, I can totally forgive that. I can. Because at the end of the day, sometimes, like, you just don't have enough people. Maybe projects clash or whatever, and you just need to have someone else do it for you that is just as passionate about it. But they actually work together with Project D2 people? They would give it a top AUG? Yeah, probably, but they're not gonna fucking do that because they want to keep it in-house and they don't want, like, competition. It is what it is. It's why they were so pissed about Valve and Dota 2, and there was that lawsuit too. Like, they could have made... Dota 2 could have honestly just been League, essentially League of Legends, like, as big, because Dota 2 is really big, but League of Legends is what people think when they see a MOBA. But yeah, they kind of shit the bed on that, and they could have had something, but yeah, they just didn't. Yeah.
Detailing the development of Half-Life 2, the team at Valve wanted Gabe Newell to greenlight Half-Life 2's development. It was actually very hard to do that because their proof of concept just wasn't good enough for him for a while. Of course, there was the argument, well, why can't Gabe just finance it? I mean, come on, you know, like, what's stopping him? He has the money for it. And this is when this paragraph comes along, saying, true, but most game developers also aren't in Valve's position, where Newell has enough money to fund a game's development out of his pocket if he so pleases. So is it really fair to hold other developers to the same standards as Valve? Ask Newell this question and he grows agitated. Any developer who bitches about, oh, our publisher cut off our money, or the publisher made us ship the game early, doesn't get it, he says.
Yo, Stone Cold Austin!
That's the interesting problem you have to solve as a developer. If you don't, well, you'll be perpetually screwed. But how do you solve the problem? Newell cites the development of Counter-Strike, where a young college kid in Vancouver made a Half-Life add-on as a prime example. You bootstrap, Newell suggests. The Counter-Strike guys didn't have some sugar daddy show up and drop a huge wad of cash in their...
Bro, Gabe is so fucking based. What the fuck?
Lap. You have
sugar
to be
daddy
creative.
show up and drops the load in your lap.
Back in 2002.
Unfathomably based.
Today in 2026, it could not ring more true. Concord had a sugar daddy. Their name was Sony. $400 million. Look Concord, where that got them. The game sucked. Period. You want funding? How about you make a game first? A proof of concept that's actually fun. When it comes to the world...
And again, that's the funny part. There's actually a really good example of freaking No Man's Sky. The concept was great and people really loved the idea. They just got lied to and they didn't get the game they wanted, outside of the performance issues and being unplayable. But people just lied. They couldn't make the promise that they had and the expectations were too high. But however, they've brought it back. People thought it was awesome. It took a long time, but they truly believed in it. And I will forever have that respect for the guy, what's his name? You guys know what I'm talking about. The guy that was front manning and taking all the heat for it. I think that he did such a great job and he deserves a lot of praise for it. He just buckled down and was like, you know what, you guys, we shit the bed. I'm sorry. Here you go. And to this day, all the updates are free and shit. Yeah. Sean Murray, yeah, he's like a great guy. Like, yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think they should have taken Sony's money. They should have let it happen. Maybe it would have turned around better, but I just think that it's possible. You shouldn't be like a pessimistic little bitch. He sold his funds to fund their first game. Yeah, like he really cared. He really did.
Leaderboard of any percent speedruns of shutting down after release, Highguard now sits at 4th place behind the Culling 2, Concord, and Crucible at 45 days. The Twitter account Poorly Aged Things would quote tweet Geoff Keighley's GIF saying, in 48 hours I'll be accepting your apologies, saying, I'm sorry, Geoff, to which Geoff would reply with a shocked image of that same grandpa in the GIF. I mean, in the movie itself, he would say this, and then he would be proven wrong. So it was very ironic. At least he was playing into the joke. But some people would be very weird
Oh, leave him alone!
about this and would photograph Geoff on Rodeo Drive in Los Angeles and say that this was him a day after Highguard announced the studio shutting down. I don't know why you got to take a picture of him IRL for this, but what do I expect from people at this point?
No, people
Someone
are
even
fucking
argued
cruel.
that Geoff
They're
actually
mean.
needs to
Leave
take
him
a level of
alone.
accountability for the game shutting down. But personally, I think if you have common sense, you'd understand that he actually did them a huge favor here, assuming he genuinely did this out of the goodness of his own heart.
Yeah.
The game would have definitely launched with maybe like 10k concurrence instead of 100,000 on PC.
Yeah.
Additionally, 2 million people tried it, and the majority didn't leave because the internet made them, okay? Paul Tassi makes a great...
I just find it so hard to believe that people out there don't understand that if it's a bad product and you still give it to 1 million people, only 1,000 people are gonna like it. Like, it doesn't matter how many people you market to. 1 million times 0 is still a 0, brother.
Great point here. Marketing can only get you to try a game.
Yes, exactly.
It can't get you to
You
stay
can give people a pile of shit to sample. They're still gonna call it a piece of shit.
on the game if it's not fun, and Highguard simply was not fun. It was weird. And at this point, it seems like every year we're seeing yet another disaster story that is similar to Concord, a game that no one asked for, that had a big budget, that had very talented people working on it, and somehow, some way, it was worked on for years without anyone thinking, wait a second, are we really about to do this? I don't know, man. All I know is that the gaming industry is in a very rough spot right now. It's almost impossible to find a job. AI isn't even to blame.
I was literally about to say, I don't think it's even AI to blame. Yeah, AI isn't helping. Yeah, sure. Yeah, people's jobs getting automated, but at the end of the day, like, that's inevitable. That's what comes with automation. That happened with the Industrial Revolution with factories and shit. Yeah, they will squeeze the fucking money out of you.
For this, executives have no idea what players actually want, and if they do, they're always late on it. And seeing that they never actually suffer the consequences directly, their employees do, they have no incentive to actually learn from their mistakes. If you want to make games, make them, but make something that people want to actually play. And don't ask for sugar daddy money. Make a playable game first, then pitch it.
The sugar daddy will come if you're hot enough.
And then get your funding. Otherwise, you'll end up like Concord, like Highguard, and God knows whatever else is going to release soon that will face the same fate. Thank you so much for watching this video until the very end. I really hope you enjoyed it. I love you so much. Platonically, I missed you. Make sure to check out my Stacked page if you want to see exclusive content of me with videos, both short and long, yapping. And I'll see you next video, whenever that is, hopefully soon. Take care, and mwah.
Mwah. Hey guys, Highguard coming on January 26th, by the way. Hey guys, Highguard's shutting down March 13th. Dude, we got 3 days left! Oh no! Nice shades. Oh. I misclicked on a toggle. Where's my... Bro. Where's my toggle? Oh, there we go. Sorry. I must have pressed it on accident. You look cool now? Thanks. Not as cool as Geoff Keighley after he got shit on. It's rough out there? Yeah, I fucking bet. I bet it is rough. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, honestly, it like sucks to suck. It really does. I support plenty of artists every day who are exceptional. You know. If I get replaced by AI, so fucking be it. Sorry, I'm not entitled to the spot. I'm not entitled to this position. No. It's time. Guys, stop saying it's time before it's time! I'm going to kill you. Literally, I'm going to strangle you. I'm gonna start banning people. I just got an offer 2 hours ago for an internship for a data analyst position, 18 an hour. It's not enough to pay my rent where I live. Yeah. Yep. Yep. It's rough out here. Man, that was a long video, but it was good. I really enjoyed that. I love yapping.
For you.